Good morning, everyone. Normally, I am very healthy throughout the year. As you can tell, it didn't work out so much for me this past week. Part of the reason for that, I think, is that this past week I went away for a few days with some other priest friends. I brought back something that's not pleasant. In addition, the town that we were staying in was located next to a massive seaport with a bunch of oil refineries, so you couldn't drink the water while you were there, just bottled water. But perhaps the biggest letdown of the last week was not so much getting laryngitis or not being able to drink water. Something else happened that I want to share with you. Shortly after we rented a car and were on our way from the airport, having just landed, on the way to our rental house, we stopped for lunch. And as we came out after lunch into the parking lot, we noticed that one of the windows in our car had been rolled down, except no one had rolled it down. And when we got closer, we noticed a bunch of glass scattered on the ground next to the car. And when we went into the car, we noticed more glass that was smashed onto the seats. But what we didn't find were our backpacks. They had been taken in broad daylight, and inside of them were iPads, laptops, AirPods, sunglasses, books, all kinds of different things. So that was my week this past week, just a few hiccups here and there. If you've ever had something stolen from you, you know that there are a range of emotions that come from it. First, there's the feeling of shock, like what just happened? And then there's the flood of anger, right? A desire to find whoever it was who did this and to take things into my own hands with them. Those were my sentiments as we were sitting there waiting for the police to arrive, as we were waiting to fill out our report and having to figure out not only a new rental car, but also replacements for all of those items that we kind of needed for vacation. But my reaction of anger showed me something a little bit different about myself. That anger, while it's justified, it's okay to be angry if something's stolen from you. What it showed me and exposed was this unhealthy attachment that I can easily have to the things that I possess. I realized that while God calls me to simplicity of life and detachment from the things that He's created, so often I can let those creations of God become more important to me than God Himself. Jesus says in the gospel today, "A good tree does not bear rotten fruit, nor does a rotten tree bear good fruit." As to those who stole our valuables that day, and there were 4 of us, whether or not they want to be a rotten tree is between them and God. As for me, what I had to ask myself is, am I going to allow myself to be a rotten tree as well? One that only produces attachment to the worldly things that God's created, that puts more value in creation than in the Creator. One that is a tree that's hollow on the inside and doesn't produce any fruit. Or instead, am I going to be a good tree that produces fruit that's always outwardly directed toward others? Earlier in the gospel, Jesus poses the question, can a blind person lead a blind person? Will they not both fall into a pit? If I'm blinded by my own attachments to my possessions, then that means I will not be able to show you what true detachment looks like. It was a challenge to go through that this past week, to have to reorient my needs, my necessities, and my desires back to the Lord, to rediscover what's most important in life, and to reattach my heart to the one who has given me all of those things that I can so easily attach myself to. That was my test this past week. What is your test? What are those things that maybe you have been forced or asked to give up, to detach yourself from? Where are you being invited to cultivate a good tree that produces good fruit rather than a rotten one that only produces spoiled fruit? So back to those stolen items. We never got them back, and I don't expect to ever see my iPad, AirPods, Ray-Bans, or any other thing that I had in that bag. Here's the thing, though. Those are replaceable. All right, the next day we went to the store and we just bought new things to help us through the rest of our time away. And we survived. We did just fine. All those things that we can attach ourselves to are replaceable. But what's not replaceable is my relationship to the one who gave me all those things. That's more important than any of the stuff that I can accumulate. Lent is beginning in just 3 days. So if we haven't done it already, I suggest we prepare ourselves well for it. In the back, you'll find some of these invitations to participate in Hallow, which is the largest prayer app in the country. Consider doing the Pray 40 challenge to help you grow in prayer this Lent. Or consider whether there is any unhealthy attachment to your possessions or anything that God has created that prevents you from having a healthy relationship to the one who's given them to you. All those things that we can address to put our hearts back in touch with the Lord, let's address that this Lent. Let's cultivate a good tree in our heart, not a rotten one, by attaching ourselves not to stuff, but instead to God alone. Amen.